Yeah,
Here
yes,
we
I'm
go.
ready to go.
Okay.
Happy to be here.
First, let's welcome everybody. Thank you all for coming to today's budget forum. Today is going to be an overview, and this is the budget that will be presented to the Delegate Assembly. We will not be amending, changing. It is going to be a vote up or a vote down. My name is Vernita Moore, and I serve as the co-chair for the Delegate Assembly of 2022. And before we jump in, I just want to say that this form is being recorded, and we will post the link on the Delegate Assembly webpage at mape.org. We have the auto captions on. Feel free to chat questions during the presentation, and if we are able, we will answer as we go. Otherwise, we will be taking questions at the end, where you can chat or raise your hand to be prompted to unmute yourself. This is your time to see the proposed budget as it will be presented at Delegate Assembly. The vote at Delegate Assembly is simply a pass or do not pass the budget. No amendments are able to be considered during DA. If you were not able to attend a resolution forum, recordings are on the website. You can email resolutions author directly with questions. Their contact information is on the resolutions posted online. If you have not RSVP'd for DA, please do not do so in the portal. And you could go on to the mape.org, and there is a DA event list. If you did get an invite and you are not able to attend, please reach out to Sierra Plunkett so then she can get a replacement. Okay, then let's jump into the budget presentation. I'd like to turn it over to Jackie Blacksford, member of our Finance Committee. Go ahead, Jackie. Thank you.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone. My name is Jackie Blogsvet. I am the regional director for Region 10, and I work at the Minnesota Department of Education, and I've been a board member serving on the Finance Committee, I think for 2 years now. So I'm happy to be here today. I'm Chet Jorgensen wasn't able to make it. He's our statewide treasurer, and I was able to be here today. So I'm just really happy to present a little bit about the budget report and proposal that will be coming to you at the Delegate Assembly. And so if you, so the proposal starts out with our executive summary, and we have some main points here that, you know, we're as the finance work group, we're really proud that MAPE has you know, made it through this COVID pandemic and some of the really tough times that we've been through over the past few years. Even after the U.S. Supreme Court decision with Janus versus AFSCME, which stopped the collection of fair share fees, which were fees assessed to all employees who were in the MAPE bargaining unit or in any labor bargaining unit. They were required because they had a job that was with a company or a public sector represented by a union. They were required to pay union dues, and they could remain a non-member and have not have voting rights, or they could become a member, pay a little bit more, and have voting rights. That was the past. And then the Janus decision happened, and MAPE and other unions lost their revenue from fair share fee payers. And so you are either a member and you pay your full dues, or you are not a member in the union, and the union is required to represent you. And you have the right to have all of the protections of the contract, and you do not have to pay anything. So that's what happened with that Supreme Court decision. and it impacted our budget and our revenue. And you'll see some slides and graphs on that later to kind of see the impact that it made. And then the forecast for 23 projects our the projects our year-over-year expenses are higher than our dues income. So that might raise a little red flag for you that, oh dear, we're our expenses, our budget, what we plan to spend in fiscal year 23 is more than what we forecast we will be receiving in dues income. It's not terrible news, but it is something to keep in mind as we move forward. And then we are concerned as the finance work group that we've seen a steady decline in the member percentage in the past couple of years, and especially throughout COVID. And with our, work from home telework environment, we have concerns, and we think that, we recommend that MAPE invest in ways to ensure that we're onboarding new employees and capturing them and helping them become members of our union. The trend shows, so we've done a little bit of research. Our MAPE staff are very helpful in helping us look at member data, and we were able to look at percentages of folks based on the year that they were hired, what percentage of each employee year class were members and non-members. And what we can see is that the trend is that within the first 5 years, you're much less likely to be a member of the union. And then members who have been employed by the state for 5 or more years are more likely to be union members. And so like that doesn't tell us why, but it just tells us that that is happening. And so we want to like keep our eye on that fact and kind of try to look at the why and understand how we might try to kind of change that trend and find better ways, better inroads and ways to connect with those new employees and help them become contributing members and engaged members in our union. So of course, a decline in membership, since our revenue is directly tied to our membership percentage, a decline in the percentage of membership and the numbers of membership directly correlates to decrease in revenue. And so if our membership number remains where it is right now or it declines, we forecast that we will have a 750,000 deficit. And I think that forecast is for fiscal year 24. And President Dayton, please jump in if I'm speaking, if I've forgotten my years or not. It's been a couple of weeks since we wrote and finalized the report, and I was just asked to jump in and present. So happy to have
great. Keep
correct.
going.
Okay, thanks. So fiscal year 23 has a future year's operation budget of 880,000 to fill this gap. That means that this year, fiscal year 22, we're looking at what we budgeted, what was approved by delegate assembly last year, and what the board has kind of watched and continued and kind of adjusted our budget. And it looks like by the time we reach the end of this year, we're going to have $880,000 that we haven't spent. So we can use that to carry it forward into next fiscal year and help us bridge the gap of the difference between our revenues and our expenditures, or our proposed budget. So we kind of see though that the trend is that like we're kind of going to be using up these future years operation budgets if our membership continues to decline or stay stagnant, we're going to reach a point where we don't have extra money to carry forward anymore. And we see that coming soon. So we need MAPE to invest in membership efforts. so that we can have a steady revenue that supports our operations budgets. The current fiscal year budget is on track for what we had proposed and what we forecasted. As of the end of June, which was the last time we kind of pulled all of that data, we had collected $2.63 million in dues, and then we had spent $2.68 million. So that, you know, tells a pretty consistent story that we generate income and we spend about what we generate. And we can spend a little bit more because of that carry forward that we've had consistently, but we're seeing that we might not have that carry forward because we're collecting less income than our expenditure, than we are spending to operate MAPE Central. So our fiscal year 23 recommendations are, well, first of all, we worked as a group to kind of change our budget narrative and make it more transparent and plain language. And that really came from some feedback, I think, that we've had at the last 2 years of delegate assembly. So we wanted to make sure that the way that we talk about our budget reflects the way that we talk about our strategic plan and our priorities in MAPE. And so we want everyone to understand that, you know, we're not, we don't talk about membership like, I know that because this is the budget, we're talking about how it is our revenue source, but we also want everyone to understand that our membership percentage and our engaged members are also a resource for us. They are like where our power comes from, where our ideas come from, where our solidarity and mutual support for everyone in doing this work, and mutual aid, and also with our relationships across Minnesota with other labor unions come from. And those are all very important pieces of what MAPE is. So we are more than the money that we generate and the more than the money that we spend operating. In fact, we generate revenue and spend money so that we can be MAPE, right? And we can have these ideas, resources, and people. So we hope that our budget report has kind of changed the way that we report how we operate and what our budget is there for and what it supports. So to stay robust, we believe, the finance work group believes, and also based on our strategic plan that was passed just this past summer, we need to continue to invest in our awesome staff at MAPE Central. We are well regarded, highly regarded for how professional and powerful our staff is in meeting our union. So we need to continue to invest in them and invest in engaged and informed locals, and also in our crisis investment fund, which also some people might refer to that or be used to referring to that as our strike fund. So those are ways that we need to invest in MAPE. And let's see, our staff and central operations. Our staff, our business agents, you'll remember that this year, you might remember that our MAPE Central has once again brought the enforcement and organizing staff, those two arms of of MAPE Central have been reunited, and our locals have one business agent now who represents them for both organizing and enforcement matters. And we think that that was a good way to invest in the work that we do and to like increase the power of our locals. And those business agents lead our locals and regions in meet and confer negotiations, the statewide and local officers, chief stewards, and the board of directors. And they lead our elected member leaders. They coach them. They really are like part of kind of creating, mentoring, and developing the worker leaders, labor leaders that we have in MAPE. We have experienced and knowledgeable stewards who also learn from and with our business agents. We have really invested a lot into our organizing council and our methods of membership recruitment, and look to continue to do that work in fiscal year 23. We invest in training our labor organizing and in 21st century skills, including inclusion, diversity, equity, and accessibility, and also focus on collaborating with partner labor organizations, as I mentioned earlier. The Crisis Investment Fund is, as I mentioned, some of us refer to that as the strike fund, but it can be for other crises like a state shutdown, a government shutdown. It's designated to provide financial support during a job action like a strike or shutdown. The balance on July 1st, 22, just earlier this summer, was 11,415,000. That seems like a lot, right? That's I think that our revenue in MAPE is generally around 6 million. So it's almost 2 years of revenue, right, for our union. But when you think about the 15,000 folks who are in our MAPE bargaining unit and the 10,433 members, that was the number of our membership as of July 1st. That 11 million would only last us 9 days? Yeah, 9 days if we were to pay the members to be like out on strike and picketing. If we were to pay them $15 per hour, so $120 a day, that money would only last us 9 days. And that's not enough to fund like a really robust and powerful strike. Like, I know strikes have lasted much longer than 9 days recently, like thinking about the trends in Minnesota. I don't remember how long the strike was for the Minneapolis Teachers Union or Minneapolis Federation of Educators, but I think it was longer than 9 days. Also that money for those 9 days does not include anything related to healthcare costs. So like, I think that we know that if we've been on strike and we cross over into the new month, we will all have to pay our own healthcare costs. And this 11 million does not pay for that. So we think it's important to continue to invest in our crisis investment fund and to be transparent about what that fund is there for. It's not there for MAPE to sit on a pile of money. It's there to kind of show to the state that we are ready, like we are serious. If they don't listen to us and take our requests and the needs that we have, like for an increased cost of living adjustment, et cetera, our demands, like to not increase our healthcare costs, if they don't take those seriously and honor them in our next contract, that, you know, we are ready, we are strike ready. So that's what a powerful and a well invested in crisis fund can do for a union. So our recommendations are to set the anticipated membership number at 69%. Even though I think on July 1st, we were a little bit under 69%. So I think if you remember back to that previous slide, it was like 10,233 members. So this 69% means that we would need like 500 more members to be at 69%. But that's what we're going to set our number at, because of, if you know what we've all have planned for October, if anyone's like super excited, if you wouldn't mind like putting a little reaction thing on your on your Zoom and let me know, like, have you signed up for MAPEtober, right? So we're hoping that MAPEtober and our other membership recruitment efforts, awesome, Rose and Nicole are signed up for MAPEtober. And I have too. I've signed up, and Kay and Mary, awesome. So if you're signed up for MAPEtober, you're going to be doing a lot of work to try to connect with those new employees that we haven't connected with. And we're hoping we can get us up to that 69% so that we can start the year off right and start have our revenues coming in at exactly what we have predicted. So we have faith in you all and in Mate Central. So our projected revenue then is 5.853 million, which is less than that 6 million that I had mentioned is our kind of our historical average of revenue. It really did dip down after the Janus decision. And so then we also propose that we spend 6.6 million, which is, you can see the deficit there, right? Between what we're going to be earning in 23 and what we are proposing that we're going to spend. And so with that carry forward from fiscal year 22, that will cover some of it, but it looks like we're going to have, we don't think that we'll have as much left over at the end of fiscal year 23 to be able to have such a robust budget the next year, unless we can get our membership numbers up. Yeah, and so you can see there that the budget includes 6.295 for central and then 348,000 for our 39 local budgets. So there's a percentage of member dues that we send to each local budget every month to help them do their local member engagement work and organizing work. And we also propose no additional investments in the crisis fund, right, or other investment funds that MAPE has. So to me, that's like, as a member of this finance work group, that's a little scary. I would prefer to be investing in our crisis fund, but I also know it's more important for us to do that work of organizing and member engagement and member recruitment and building a robust union. Like we can't be strike ready if we don't have an organized union. So we do prioritize that member engagement and organizing work that we're focusing on. Okay, so then you go further into the budget report and you'll get some graphs and tables and fun data that we all love to look at. And so if you're a numbers person and a dollars and cents person, I think you'll like these tables. Our employee bargaining unit has grown by 1,700 members in the past 6 years. It didn't grow very much at all throughout COVID. And in fact, it kind of like froze, right? There was a hiring freeze. And then I think that this year we had about 200 more people in the bargaining unit than we did in 2020. So you can see that in the graph. But we're hoping that we can continue to grow and that Minnesota continues to invest in our strong state government workforce and in our state government, because that's what makes Minnesota a great place to live. And so our membership numbers have fluctuated over the past 6 years. That Janus decision, I think, was in 2018. So you can see that MAPE really responded well to the Supreme Court. We knew that decision was coming. And then I think Supreme Court Justice Anton something,
Scalia.
Scalia, thank you. Anton Scalia passed away very unexpectedly, and he was forecasted to have he was going to cast a vote for or against, unions and against the that fair share fee payer. And so it actually gave us a little bit more time, and we thought maybe this decision wouldn't happen, but the way things went, we had a conservative judge added to the Supreme Court, and that decision did come down then in 2018. But we had quite a few years to invest in membership recruitment and getting people to sign membership cards and agree to stay members. So we built our membership, but then with COVID, we're not sure all of the internal and external reasons for why we've had this membership decline. A lot of it we think could be the teleworking conditions and not being in person and meeting our new employees and getting to know them in person and having those conversations about the union and and them being able to attend our local meetings in person, et cetera. It took a while for us to get our local executive teams, I think, up and running and leading local member meetings every month virtually. So we've had this decline over the past 2 years, right? We stayed about same in 19 and 20. So we can move forward. Percentage of members. So percentage is a little bit different than the number of members because of the number of our bargaining units. So when there's a hiring freeze and we have just less people in general working for the state and in our MAPE bargaining unit, then we have a lower number of members. Even if the percentage is the same, we have still less people paying their member dues. And so that does decrease our revenue. So the membership number matters and the number of folks in our bargaining unit matters. So you can see that membership, where I said that our bargaining unit didn't really, or our number of members didn't really decrease from 19 to 20, you can see that our percentage decreased. So that meant that we had more people in state employment working for MAPE, but a smaller percentage of them were signing up to become members. So that's important. Looking at that 67.1 right now is really hard for me to see that and to see that decline. I don't fully understand it. And I hope that as MAPE, as a whole statewide organization, that we can do better to improve our member engagement, because that is our power. That's how we're going to tell the story to our state, to MMB when we're negotiating our contract, that we mean business, that we need that they need to meet our demands so that we can work together. Thanks, Carolyn. Yep. And let's see here, members versus non-members. So we face a challenge with membership recruitment that is external and internal. It's both things. It's like, are we ready? Do we have the capacity as MAPE and as MAPE, elected leaders and our paid staff? Do we have the capacity to connect with these new employees who are onboarded virtually, and do we know how to connect with them? Do we have relationships with our HR staff so that they are inviting us to the new member orientation that is in our contract, that we should be, that the union is has the right to have a conversation with every new employee? Have we figured out how to do that virtually with our human resources staff? I can tell you that yes, in some cases in Region 10, and no in some agencies in Region 10. So it's something that we're working on. So this is that graph that I mentioned earlier, that was the data that our finance work group looked at and was able to see that we need to do a better job reaching out to new employees. That you can see, like a employee in their first year of service, we aren't even at 50% membership with new employees. So but you see it increases. And this isn't the percentage, this is the numbers of employees, but you can kind of see between the red and the blue. So the red is a non-member, the blue is a member. You can see that the longer our folks have been in state service, it kind of plateaus, where you can see like that the membership percentage is around, it looks like around 80%. That might be a little bit high, but to me visually it looks like around 80% is where we plateau. But in those first few years, we're less than 50% membership. So we really want to target those new employees in our membership efforts. And again, our income is derived almost entirely from dues, also a little bit from you can, if you haven't already done this, you can choose to add more to your bi-weekly contributions to MAPE through contributing to our PAC, our Political Action Committee. I believe. Before, let's see here. So before the Janus decision, we collected more than 2 million annually from fee payers. So that really did drop our revenue then. We had, and that's how, so if you're wondering, like, how did we build that strike fund, that crisis investment fund? That's probably from the days of when we had fair share fee payer. We actually brought in more revenue than we had in operating costs, and we were able to make more investments. So it's great that we have these resources and these investments already, but we haven't been continuing to invest. We haven't been growing our investments. Members and income dues. Here's just another way of slicing and dicing that data. You can see that it's more important than ever to keep an eye on our membership numbers. And we even came up with a break-even membership number. So you can see, for us to be able to maintain the projected like operating costs that we have, our break even, where is our break even member number? Or let me see. I am sorry. This one is hard for me to, I'm not sure if it's the right graph to illustrate where our break-even membership number is 77%, but basically to be able to fund what we have for our proposed budget for fiscal year 23, the break-even percentage is 77%, like it, so that we wouldn't have to be using future operation or future years operating money. So like the leftover money from our operating costs for the year 22, instead of carrying it forward and putting it towards the next year's operation costs, we could invest it in the strike fund if we had leftover money. But in order to get there to that place where we might have that money left over at the end of a year, we forecast that we would need to see a membership at 77%. And this illustrates the effect the percentage of members has on the annual budget. So you could see what our budget or what our revenues would be if our members at the current size of our bargaining unit, which is about 15,000 some, if our member percentage was at 80% with 12,400 members, we would have 6,770,000 in revenues. And that is a little bit higher than what our proposed operations budget for fiscal year 23 is. So 77% would get us to where we need to be. Oh, and this just kind of breaks out what percentage of our annual operating budget is invested in different areas of expenditure. So our crisis fund, oh no, I'm sorry, this is not, it's a different graph. This is our other income. And so for full disclosure, my computer wasn't able to show me any images for this spreadsheet. So for this PowerPoint. So I wasn't able to prepare for anything that's in here as an image. So hang on. Megan, are you able to speak to this one? Total financial. So
this one is our non-operations funds and the percent of the fund that's being spent. So the majority of the money here is going toward undesignated reserves, right? 3 million is 15%. There we go. And the crisis fund though is the largest of all of these at 11.5.
Yeah. I don't know if I see this as like other income, like it says up at the top, but it's more like what we have in other, like this is other
these are existing funds.
Yeah,
existing. So this is money that is currently sitting in these accounts as they're listed as an asset. So when they do like our audit at the end of the year, this is what is discussed with the board of directors within that audit.
Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yep.
But yeah, I think that total down there, the 20 million, the total financial assets is more a better description of what this image is.
Correct.
Okay, thank you, Megan. Okay, so we have MAPE annual income and expenses. They've fluctuated over the last 6 years, shows a trend of revenues that exceed our total costs every year. I think it's actually okay, that yes, we have historically had revenues that exceed our total operating costs every year, but we are seeing what people sometimes refer to as a fiscal cliff, where like if things continue where they are right now, we will get to a place where we don't have money at the end of a fiscal year to carry forward to the next year, and we're going to have less revenue and higher operating costs. And so we're going to have to look at ways to decrease our operating costs if we can't increase our membership and our revenue. And at the delegate assembly every year, you all help us decide if the budget that we've proposed is going to support our best interest as MAPE as an organization for the next fiscal year. So that's why you're all here to sit through to hear our presentation and hear more about our proposed budget. And also I think you will have a copy of that report in your delegate assembly attendance materials. Yeah, so we need to be aware of this trend of decreasing membership. And we can go to the next slide. Annual income and expenses. The current trend for 22 is that there will be roughly 300,000 remaining to carry forward for the next year's fiscal 23's operation funds. And we propose, or we forecast a possible shortfall of 750,000 for fiscal year 23. And we can use the future year's operations fund to cover that shortfall, but fiscal year 24 is where we might see that fiscal cliff if we haven't done our job in Maytober and continuing throughout the year next year. And if we haven't, if we don't get to that 77% membership, we're going to need to look at how we prioritize our investments in MAPE. Total revenue, total expenses, and different. These are difference. These are actual expenditures now when you're looking. And so we don't, let's see here. So you can see like what our total revenue was for the past 6 years and our total expenses and the difference. So obviously we don't have that number for fiscal year 22 because we haven't finished it yet and we haven't closed out our books for 22 and had an audit and all that. But you can see the most recent numbers that we have were that we had 403,000 left over in fiscal year 21 that we were able to carry forward to future years. You can see in 22, the revenue looks like it was like a bunch higher, but that's because we had just a calendar reason that we had 27 pay periods instead of kind of the standard 26. So that kind of bumped up our revenue there for that year. Speaking of audits, our union's bylaws require an annual external audit, and our CPA Gary Paulson completed our fiscal year 21 audit, and you can see that in our report that we had a clean audit. And Mr. Paulson also audits the building corp that owns MAPE Central and also the political action committee, and those are reported in the report. Here's where it says that that we have a clean audit, and our board of trustees reviews our finances. So we even have like a layer of accountability, and our board of trustees is able to look at what we do as a finance work group, and they review our finances and our compliance with our internal policies. Our union operates on a calendar basis. And our budget is approved by the delegate assembly, and the board of directors, when the delegate assembly isn't in session, can modify the budget once it's been approved by the delegate assembly. And the board of directors can modify it as needed throughout the year. Yes, historically, our expenditures and our revenue are around 6 million. And the proposed budget for 2023 is 6.635 million, representing a 3.7 increase over the 2022 budget, which is lower than current inflation. So we think that's important to share. So we are like MAPE Central and our staff and our management is finding ways to make sure that we keep our costs manageable, that we're finding ways to save money, and we don't feel that we're like increasing our budget at a rate that is unsustainable, as long as we can improve our membership numbers. Here, this breaks down our proposed spending for 23. So we have quite a few columns. We have the 20 and 21 budget and expenditures listed, so that you can see what was budgeted and then what was actually spent. And so we can't report what was spent for 22 because we're currently in that budget year. So you kind of look backwards at the finished budget from about 2 years ago when we are creating the 23 budget. So and then we decided to set the 2023 budgets at about 104%, or to be exact, 103.7% of the 22 budget. So and then we also look at kind of areas that we had been spending money in that we may have stopped investing in. For instance, I'm trying to find an example of that. Sometimes there are pieces that, like, we keep them where in fiscal year 22 we would have invested in something that we as a union decided that we wouldn't be doing that anymore. And I think one of them was it's called relational organizing, I think. So that was something that we stopped investing in. I don't know if that's listed here or not. Yeah, there it is. Thank you, Vernita. So so you can see that we're all zeros there, but then you can see that there are other things that that we're putting more money into, because we're seeing results from, like, the organizing council or other types of work that we're doing as MAPE Central. We're starting to see results, and we think that continuing to invest will make a stronger MAPE. Yeah, we can forward. The proposed central budgets, you see a little bit here about, like, how MAPE Central operates and what that general fund, how we kind of break it out and what those expenditures go to. A lot of course, our excellent MAPE staff, although I don't see them listed here, but these are more of like the cost of, having a building, having telephones, and our MAPE network, and just the rent that we pay to our own building core, because the MAPE building core owns our business, or owns our building, and MAPE Central pays the building core for rent, and then the MAPE building core continues to invest in the building and make sure that it's up to code, and a comfortable place for all of our members and our staff to work together.
Sorry to pause, Jackie. I see Angie has her hand up.
Okay.
Did we want to take a quick question?
Yes, please, Angie, please.
Hey, Director Blogstead, thank you. And I'm sorry that I was a little bit late, but did we cover our attorney expenses, or is that included in professional services? Because I'm wondering a couple of questions, how much we've spent last year and then what we're projecting for our future the next year, please. And thank you.
Okay. Yes, thank you for your question. Professional services. Let's see here. So you can see that our expenses in 21 were lower than what we had budgeted. So we spent 229,000, and yes, our attorney fees are included in our professional services. So you're correct with that. And then the 22 budget was lower than 21. And our year-to-date expenses for that are lower. And I'm trying to remember why they're lower.
Sorry, which one are we on?
We're on professional services, which includes our MAPE attorneys. So I'm wondering, I kind of think, Angie, you might know this too, but is this because there were just like a lot less like grievances that went all the way through to I'm forgetting my word. It starts with an A.
Arbitration.
Arbitration.
So
Thank you.
you're reading my mind here.
Okay.
I am just keeping an eye on what we're spending for our attorneys on arbitration costs when the board approved 2 additional business agent positions.
Okay.
So the use of our attorney for arbitration, to me, needs to be very carefully thought out and planned for. And so I'm just only asking the question because I want to keep an eye on this.
Yeah.
I think it's a way that we can save on those costs because we are spending more with more staff. And so I would expect that we have our staff handling arbitrations to the extent possible. So I'm just not trying to attack or anything. I'm just keeping an eye and just watching the numbers. So thank you for that.
Yeah, thank you. And I mean, of course, you're not trying to attack. You're a big part of that work. So I appreciate you bringing that to our attention. And I think that is something important for us to all keep our eyes on. And I will report that back to the finance work group. I appreciate that.
Hey, Jackie, can I elaborate on the professional services just a little bit more? Because it's more than just attorney fees, right? We have some contracts with the, for example, Emil, Angelica for the board governance work. That's not the whole of the decline that we've seen here since we've severed our contract with him, but it's other, I think, little things along the way. We've also changed like our IT people, and that is saving us a ton of money. So I think it's the little things along the way that are in there too.
Yeah, it's like contracted services, you know, any of those expenses that our agencies have where we hire someone from outside to perform part of the job of operating our organization. So for us, that, you know, I would have to have the, you know, actual spreadsheet to be able to dig into everything that adds up to those expenses. But I think you're exactly right, Megan, or President Dayton. I think that those are the other professional services that are included in those costs. Expenses, let's see here, central. So these are staff. So you see staff salaries here. That's a big part of our expenses. You can see, in the almost 3 million, which is great. We have a great staff that we've invested in, and so you can see that part of the cost of having that staff is their salaries and also their meals, mileage, travel expenses. They cover all of the state of Minnesota for us. We have MAPE members across Minnesota. And you can see also like the trends of how those expenses changed throughout the pandemic. So I think a lot of MAPE's operating costs decreased because of that virtual world with the pandemic, where we weren't traveling, we weren't having meetings in person, we weren't needing to pay or reimburse our staff for like hotel costs, mileage, and their meals. And so I think some of that we were able to capture and use to invest in additional staff, right? We have 2 more MAPE staff. But these are all areas that we're going to need to continue as the MAPE finance work group and as the delegate assembly to keep our eyes on. Like, how are we able to maintain this investment in MAPE Central and able to maintain the investment in MAPE as a union through our membership dues revenue, and still continue to have like a powerful union that's organized and mobilized. Okay, budget recommendations. This again, I feel like a lot of the things are ways of saying the same thing over and over again. But so I would like to probably, I'm trying to think, it's 12:52. I'd love to get to, oh, okay. So it is, that was just the last slide before questions. Great. Okay, so we assume that we're going to be at 69%, which we're not there yet. But we really believe in MAPEtober and all of the other membership recruitment efforts that are happening. We will be recommending that our dues stay at $21 per pay period. And what that means is, like, in order for us to change our member due cost, or the amount for our members' dues, like that has to come before the delegate assembly. So when we say that we're keeping the members, the member dues at $21 per pay period, that means that will remain that way throughout fiscal year 23. And so that is, so it's not coming before delegate assembly here next week in October. So you can expect that it'll stay that way through fiscal year 23. Our monthly financial report shows we have earned $19,000 in interest and other income. And so that's a reasonable, 40,000 is a reasonable expectation for fiscal year 23. And so then you get to our new income for 23. And then our expenses, you can see that based on everything that we've shared and that is in your report, that our expenses are $750,000 higher than what our projected revenue is. Okay, questions? And thank you so much for sitting through all of that with me.
There looks to be a question in the chat. What would it have to be if union membership doesn't grow?
Oh, okay, so we could probably go back to that. Well, what would our budget need to be? So I would go back to the slide that was right before this one, Bernita. Our budget would need to be 5.893 million. Does that make sense? Because that is our income. And that is our income at a projected rate of membership of 69%. So, you know, our income comes in throughout the year, right? So, so we don't have a guaranteed 69% membership, but that is like what the finance work group, and also in collaboration with the organizing council, we kind of had a conversation with them and asked them where they see things going with the efforts that they know are coming in the future. And with the, you know, they've been doing so much work. They brought local leaders together in June for a membership recruitment retreat where every local made a membership plan, like membership and engagement plan. And then they came up with this with MAPEtober. They've helped, I know that local 1001, which is in region 10, we were able to have a phone banking day at MAPE Central. And like, I think we probably captured, I think 4 on that day, new members, but also those phone calls, and it was a part of contract action team, like the CAT team building our negotiations efforts and everything, like just building our membership engagement and communication, we hope is going to help raise the visibility and generate interest and engagement in MAPE and increase our membership numbers. So through a conversation with the organizing council, the finance work group and organizing council decided on that 69% membership, that's what we can rely on generating revenues in 23. We really hope to overshoot that. Like, it'd be so cool to see our membership numbers up above 70% in 23, and then we would have money at the end of the year potentially to carry forward into future operating costs.
And there
Does that
was
answer
a
your question?
Well, there was the follow-up, same person said, sorry, I wrote it when you were discussing dues. So the question was,
Oh.
what would the dues have to be
Oh,
if membership doesn't grow?
I see. I mean, that's a really complex conversation to have, because the conversation would be, and President Dayton, feel free to jump in anytime here, because the conversation would need to involve stakeholders outside of the finance work group. And it would need to involve like conversations about predicting, like, if we increase our dues, will we decrease membership? Will people drop membership because we've increased dues? What would happen if we increase the dues, right? And so, so it's not as simple as saying, okay, here's what our expenses are for the upcoming year. We just need to increase the dues to be able to cover that, because by increasing that dues number, you could decrease your membership percentage, and then you'd be back at square one where you don't have enough revenue to cover your operating costs. So it's a really complex conversation and decision to make, and it needs to be made with MAPE as a whole and not just as the finance committee. So I don't have an actual number for you, because that's because we didn't cost that out, but that is something that I can take that back to the work group and talk about maybe how could we maybe answer that in future reports, if and do we want to explore that in future reports. Megan, do you have anything to add?
Yeah, I can elaborate a little bit. So the last time that we raised our dues was in 2013, I believe. We went from, I think it was $18 to $21. So that decision by the delegate assembly to set dues at $21 is kind of like, here, go, you know, for the board of directors or for the delegate assembly, go figure out what you can do with this amount of money, right? When Janice happened and we lost the fee payers, right? We did not decide to change the dues in response to losing a bunch of revenue. We decided to change the model to try to increase membership and increase engagement in our union, right? So that would have been another inflection point where we could have made the decision to raise dues, but we did not, right? So what we're doing now with this budget, instead of saying we're going to raise dues because we have a deficit, we're saying we've got this future years fund, future years operations fund that's got a bunch of money in it. And we're going to spend that down before we have to do anything else while we try to increase engagement in the membership, right? We didn't plan on Janice, we didn't plan on COVID happening, and both of those have negatively impacted our revenue because they've negatively impacted our members. However, we've got some really low-hanging fruit with new members that have come into the state over the last couple of years, and they've either not gotten an NEO, a new employee orientation, as they've come into state service, you know, or they've had a virtual one, and the employer, their HR department in whatever agency, has not informed us of it, so we weren't able to get there. Excuse me, I'm so sorry. So we are saying with this budget, we don't have enough money coming in from dues to be able to do what we need with it. However, we've set aside this bunch of money, this pot of money because of Janice, because we knew this would happen at some point. So we've kind of done our homework from 5 or 6 years ago because we knew this was a situation that we would be in if we did not raise dues. So now I think for probably the last time we're able to say, let's take that money that our union set aside and let's spend it in the way that we had intended to spend it to avoid another year potentially having to increase dues. But Jackie, you're totally right that the dollar amount, like we could look at the membership number and say, what would we have to raise dues to for this same number of people in order to cover all of this. But we did not want to do that because we had the money to not have to do it yet. Right. I see a question there about the Janice decision. That was the Supreme Court decision in 2018 that ended compelled union dues for public sector employees. But I feel like I'm on a soapbox now, so I'm going to stop talking a little bit, but I just wanted to add that in there.
Yeah. One thing that I've experienced as a steward in local 1002 is that, and this is just an anecdotal story to give you an idea of why we might not be having as many members sign up, is that the employees, new employees were being sent employment offer letters from the Department of Education, where I work, stating that on their paycheck, they will see fair share dues removed from their paycheck. They were being sent this offer letter in 2022, 4 years after the Janice decision. So this is an example of a technical reason why we might have people out there, employees in our bargaining unit out there, who think they're a MAPE member, who think they're paying dues, and they're not. And because they were, first of all, the human resources team at the Department of Education is 4 years behind on their job, and they've lied to a new employee, and which we have worked through Meet and Confer to have them address that. But these are things that we need to find, and we need to clean up, and we need to address these technical issues for why we're not capturing these new employees and bringing them on board as engaged and dues paying members, right? So that's just one example of where we, that's low hanging fruit, just like President Dayton said. So I see hand raised, Director Tuckey.
Yes.
Hi, Jackie. See, I wanted to ask, do you guys know what percentage of members dropped the last time that we did do a dues increase?
I don't know. Does anyone know? I think Megan has someone in her office. So I don't know the percentage that dropped the last time we did a dues increase. And yeah, that is probably something like with the finance work group. I'm not sure that that's something that would be appropriate in our finance report. But it would definitely be appropriate in a future conversation around decisions around raising dues. Like, would that be the answer to making sure that, that we're able to sustain a strong union, or do we need to work on membership recruitment efforts? Megan, do you know the history of how many, what the number of members that maybe dropped membership when we increased our dues?
Oh, back in 2013?
Mm-hmm.
I do not know that. But I know, as we move into this conversation of what will dues have to look like based on what we're able to do in November or for the next really 12 months to get membership up, that's definitely something that we're going to want to look at. But I have no idea.
Yeah.
So that was also pre-Janice. So those
right.
people, if you dropped your membership in 2013, you were only saving $3, right? Because you went down to $4 because you went down to you went down to $17 if you were a fair share dues paying member. So perhaps the motivation wasn't there anymore, but our problem is very clearly that we're not getting in front of new members and not necessarily that people are dropping. And I know that that conversation will change if we talk about raising dues some.
This
Yeah.
is Rob.
Okay,
Hi, Rob.
Robert. Mhm.
Hi, I just have a comment. I talked to somebody who's in ASME and their dues have gone up a lot in the last several years. Maybe not every year or incrementally, but I think it's something to consider that, you know, if their membership is not dropping because of slight increases here and there, then I think that initially it might be slight, I mean, depending on how much we go up. But they're also, dues are also percentage based, where ours are not. And that might also make a difference. So things to consider.
Absolutely.
But
And
it's nice to know that you guys are more open to it, because when I brought this up at the last budget meeting, I was basically shut out of the room.
oh,
I got huge pushback from that by whoever was in charge of the budget presentation then. So it's nice to know that it's something to consider. It's not that everybody wants to pay more. I mean, nobody wants to pay more, but at the same time, we have to look at the viability of the organization.
mhm.
And if dues need to go up a couple dollars, or the percentage needs to change. But, you know, those are all, I mean, obviously we all want to recruit more people. But we also have to look at, you know, a lot of the other factors as well. So,
Thank you, Robert. One thing I would add is that MAPE is a different kind of union. We're a member-led union. So we don't have a national union like AFSCME does, or like UAW. Like, we are our own union. There isn't a national MAPE union. MAPE is the largest independent member union, I think, in the country. Is that still true, Megan? Do you know?
Yes.
Yes, so we don't pay dues outside of MAPE. We use it, it's all contained within MAPE. So we maintain all of our revenue, other than the $1.25 per local that we send back to locals so that they can do their own member engagement and create, you know, and build relationships and et cetera in their locals. But we don't send anything outside of MAPE. So that does keep our dues lower than many other unions. But that doesn't mean that we have to, like, yeah, I mean, it's beyond the finance work group to decide what to do regarding dues.
oh, I understand that.
Yeah.
And I echo what you say about MAPE. I have felt nothing but inclusion working with MAPE, and I pass that on to all new people, new hires. And when I talk to them about MAPE and the differences between MAPE and other unions is it really is just member driven. So I have no negative feelings about that. It's 100% times a million true. So.
Oh, that's awesome to hear, Robert. Thank you.
But thank you for your presentation. I had to step in and out throughout it, but it's clear that we all put, you know, you guys put lots of thought and thought into it. And I really think that we're definitely gonna, in the next, you know, hopefully in the next year, we'll definitely increase our membership. But if not, it's nice to know that we have some other ideas on the table so that it's not a last, you know, 11:59 decision. All right, we need to raise dues, but not have a plan on how to do it. So.
Absolutely. Yeah, everything is just so interdependent, right? And so connected. And so we can't just increase or decrease something without it having an effect on everything that we do.
Agreed.
Yeah.
All right, well, I will let you guys go. Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Robert. Appreciate
bye.
you too.
There's-
And
there's
I
a
have
few
a
more-
meeting to hop off to.
Oh, there's a few more questions in the chat if you have a moment.
Oh, boy.
I can stick
Um,
around, Jackie, if you want to go.
You can. Thank
Yep.
you. I do
Yeah.
have an external meeting that I need to hop into.
This was really fantastic. Thank you so much, Jackie.
Thanks for inviting me, and
Thank
I'll
you,
see you in a
Jackie.
week or so at Delegate Assembly.
Yep.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
The remaining questions, one is there a contingency plan to reduce spending if we don't get to 69% membership?
The short answer to that is no, there's not a contingency plan. The contingency plan is to get membership up to 69%. And if we don't do that, we'll make some plans on what to do from there. The board of directors does have the authority to make those decisions, to amend the budget when delegate assembly is not in session. If there's ever, you know, a really dire situation, we could consider, I have the authority to, you know, pull another delegate assembly together. So we could talk about it that way. But the plan right now is just to get membership up, to get more people engaged in the union, our union.
Then there's a question, was there a slide justifying the budget lines that are throwing a balanced positive budget into deficit?
I don't know if I am a dollar sign savvy person enough to understand that question. Is that Carolyn?
Yes.
Carolyn, are you still here? Can you unmute and kind of elaborate a little bit?
Hi, yeah, I am.
Hi.
So I think we just, you know, it sounds like we're kind of over or in the ways of potentially overspending. And I just wanted to see what budget lines or what maybe committees kind of are doing that this go round.
Oh, we are way underspending for this fiscal year, if that's what you mean.
Okay.
We're planning for, or preparing for a budget deficit next fiscal year. But for this year, we're at about 64% of the year-to-date budget.
Okay, then it would be for the next fiscal year.
Correct. Yep, that's the $780,000 deficit.
Okay, and I just wondering where that's germinating from.
Oh, for next year?
Yeah.
It's a decrease in membership.
Oh, it's solely membership.
Yeah. Yep. It's not related to any committees overspending or any part of our budget that we've already planned on being overspent. It's that kind of, you know, going back to when we set our dues at $21, this is kind of the membership saying this is what you can do with that money. And our membership has fallen down to a level where we cannot do that anymore. So, yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I think when, you know, this is presented, that's going to be like the biggest question, right? That people are like, what does it mean to be in deficit? And I think the question prior to me of what is the contingency plan? I think that's something to explore, to really be able to talk about that in the way that you just did.
Sure. Yeah, we kind of go into that with the future years operations funds that was set up in response to the Supreme Court's decision back in 2018. So this is kind of our contingency plan here, right? If this doesn't end up working where we're not able to get membership up, we kind of have to like sort of reset our thinking on what we want to do as a union.
Perfect. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks for your question. Thanks for elaborating too. I'm sorry I didn't get it at first.
It looks like that was all the questions in the chat.
Does Lois still have her hand up or no?
I think that's from before.
Oh, okay.
Thank
All
you,
right.
Cynthia. You are a rock star. You've done great. So are there any more questions for the budget form? And if not, this is the budget that will be presented at Delegate Assembly on October 8th. So please be prepared to vote it up. Okay, I'm kidding. No more questions? Then we can close. And thank you all for joining the budget forum. Thank you, President Dayton.
Thank you. Thanks to everyone for being here. Bye.